A rumor recently, and I think it may have appeared also in the Jerusalem Post, that Sisi, the president of Egypt, was perhaps willing to give the Palestinians the northeastern corner, if you like, of the Sinai Peninsula, so that it could be joined to the Gaza Strip as a chunk of Palestinian territory, so that the Palestinians overcrowded in the Gaza Strip would have more land and be able to spread out and present less of a problem demographically and politically to Israel. And other people have suggested this previously, that there's no solution to the Gaza Strip with its 1.5 million or close to 2 million people living in a very, very small area. There's no solution to it, and the solution really should be expanding the area, giving them more land. They can spread out, they can leave the slums, which are called refugee camps, and have a better life. The problem with this is that I don't know that Sisi ever suggested or proposed this. I've never seen an Egyptian leader who's willing to voluntarily give up Egyptian sovereign territory. Nations, incidentally, are usually not that generous. They don't just give up their own territory, usually. Maybe Sisi's bound for sainthood, and maybe he's going to do that, but I don't think it's going to happen. But this would be ideal in terms of solving the Gaza demographic problem, which underlies the political problem. Another solution would be to move part of Gaza's population, or a large part of it, to the West Bank or anywhere else where anybody will take them. But the problem is nobody wants to take them. And West Bank Arabs, incidentally, are not thrilled by the idea of hundreds of thousands of Arabs joining them from the Gaza Strip. They don't particularly like the Gaza Arabs, the Gaza Palestinian brothers, or whatever you want to call them. So Gaza is like a problem without a solution. And the idea that Sisi might give up some of Sinai for the Palestinians is a good idea, but it's not going to happen, in my view. Maybe it will happen, and we can all be happy with that. Jordan and the West Bank. Jordan conquered the West Bank, which was supposed to be the core of the Palestinian Arab state the United Nations had earmarked for Palestinian sovereignty in the partition resolution of the 29th of November 47. Jordan conquered the West Bank in 1948 and retained it until 1967. After 1967, Jordan wanted the West Bank under King Hussein. They wanted the West Bank back. Israel was averse to giving back the West Bank, though the Labour Party, which ruled Israel, or some of the Labour Party, supported what was called the Alon Plan, a plan put on the table but never actually adopted by the Israeli government or even the Labour Party. Yigal Alon was one of the ministers, a general from 48, one of the senior ministers in the 70s and 80s. He put down a plan that would for a peace treaty with Hussein, in which Israel would give up part of the West Bank in return for peace with Jordan. It offered initially 60% of the West Bank, then the number was raised to 70%. King Hussein always said, I want 100% of the West Bank, what had been our territory between 48 and 67, and I also want East Jerusalem. We can't exclude East Jerusalem. It's part of the West Bank. Israel was never willing to give up East Jerusalem, and so nothing ever came of the Alon Plan, which had never been an official Israeli policy or even official Labour Party policy at any point in time. In 1987, and the territory remained under Israeli occupation from 67 onwards. In 1987, December broke out the first Intifada, and the Palestinians of the West Bank rebelled in a non-lethal way, basically, against the Israelis. And Hussein of Jordan was persuaded by that rebellion that he could never actually any longer aspire to gain control again of the West Bank. In other words, he understood that the West Bank Palestinians will not accept neither Israeli sovereignty or occupation, nor Jordanian reoccupation. The West Bank Arabs do not want Jordanian occupation. That's what he understood. And in 1988, he severed his ties with the West Bank and said, essentially, I will no longer aspire to gain control again of the West Bank. They have their own leadership, PLO leadership. They have their own future, their own destiny. It'll have nothing to do with Jordan. The exception, the small exception, and this has been Jordanian policy ever since. They've basically withdrawn their citizenship. Most West Bankers had Jordanian citizenship. Gradually, they lost that citizenship. The Jordanians only retained one small item in the territories, which was some form of say about what happens in the Temple Mount or the holy areas, Muslim areas, holy to the Muslims in Jerusalem. And this stems from Abdallah coming from the Hashemite family, Abdallah being the great-grandfather of Hussein. No, Abdallah being the grandfather of Hussein, King Hussein. Abdallah the Hashemite from Hijaz, one of the sons of Hussein ibn Ali of Hijaz, the protector of the faith from Hijaz, they had the keys to Mecca and Medina, like the Pope has the keys to Rome and to Christianity or Catholic Christianity. They had the keys to Mecca and Medina and saw themselves as protectors of the faith, the Hashemite family who controlled, the Sharif of Mecca, who controlled the holiest sites in Islam. Abdallah, being the son of these people, said we should retain also the keys to the holy sites of Jerusalem as well, the third holiest site in Islam. And his grandson Hussein said we should have a special interest in the future of the holy sites in Jerusalem. And so whenever Israel builds a bridge onto the Temple Mount or whatever it does near the Temple Mount, they always end up consulting the Jordanian government about what's going on in East Jerusalem and what should be done on the site or what shouldn't be done. And the Jordanians protest if Israel does this or that. But apart from that, the Jordanians have essentially said, the West Bank no longer interests us. It's a Palestinian area. The Palestinians should eventually become sovereign in it. We don't demand sovereignty.